Hey guys, I'm going to go live on YouTube and Instagram right now. So I'm going to give myself a second to do that. What we're going to talk about today is a reading I just did. Everybody on Instagram, I'm going live, two sources right now, YouTube and Instagram. And I'm open to anyone else's interpretation about what we're going to talk about right now. This just came through during a reading I just finished with, and I asked my client if she was okay with me sharing, and of course she was. It was a quick reading, only 30 minutes, and so much came out of the world of spirit that I have to seek this avenue right now to tell you guys and share with you guys the beautiful metaphor that spirit gave this woman about emotions, feelings, and how they weigh us down. And instead of the mind getting carried away with the thoughts, the repetitive thoughts, how can you reprogram your thoughts? Everybody's talking about that now. It's been around for eons about reprogramming your thoughts. Hey, everybody, thanks for joining. Thanks for joining. I've got two streams going here. I'm talking about what just happened during a reading. And Spirit kept saying, reprogram the thoughts. The metaphor they used, let me tell you exactly what they said to my client. And again, I have her permission to share. They asked her, do you feel weighted down with emotions and feelings? She said, yes. And I said, Spirit's telling me that the emotions, the feelings that you're having are keeping you tied to the desk, tied down. And then they said, if you could view your emotions as layers of clothing that you have on you, layers of clothing. So if you have repetitive thoughts, if you're working on challenges and your mind just keeps going and going with the same thought pattern, Spirit wants us to take it out of the mind and imagine each emotion or challenge that you have is a layer of clothing on your body. So I had on at the time a button up fleecy thing, and I felt myself very thick, like lots of layers of the emotional layers that I hold. So Spirit started saying, okay, let's look at an emotion. And then can you view that emotion as you start unzipping or unbuttoning one layer of how it's holding you, weighted down? So let's just say shame. And then you have this layer of clothing that you're like, okay, shame, how does it feel if I start to unbutton this layer? How does it feel? And again, you're taking this emotion, feeling out of your mind and you're playing with it as if it were a piece of clothing. Thanks everybody for joining. I'm going to take questions or comments. So go ahead and put them in the chat if you have something you'd like to say. Thank you. So here we've got this one layer. We'll say it's shame. And you start to unbutton it, which is you starting to go deeper, starting to ask it more questions, and then ask it, how would it feel if I now took off this layer of shame? So your mind is coming in as the higher perspective, and the emotion that holds you down is the layer of clothing. Bypassing the repetitive tapes and reframing what you're now saying to these emotions that are stuck as a layer of clothing. So we started doing it with the client. I started allowing Spirit to channel more and more about each emotion, and we started taking off layers. And then at the end, we're like, oh, Spirit's like, okay, well, they don't want you to put that layer back in the closet. So you don't have that opportunity to go back to the closet and say, oh, I feel shame again. Let me pull that layer out and put it back on. We're reframing. So Spirit was asking, okay, you can let go of that layer of clothing. You could give it away because it only held to the shame with you. If you gave it away to someone, if you recycled it to someone, you gave it to Goodwill or the Salvation Army, whatever. Again, this is all higher perspective metaphor. If you gave it away, no one else is going to pick that up. That was only for you. So it's okay to let go of that layer of clothing. I'll say that again. It's okay to let go of that layer of clothing. Anybody that's listening, can you look at your emotions? We started with shame. It could be fear. It could be denial. It could take you a moment to recognize that these layers are weighting your body down. It could take you a moment to recognize that. So if anybody has an emotion right now that they feel is a layer of clothing that they're holding on to, right? Zipped up tight, buttoned up tight, whatever. Let me know in the comments now or in the comments later, and we can watch that as our thoughts as we speak to these layers of clothing and take them off one by one. Another thing Spirit said during this reading, they talked about food and how our mind tells us what we want to eat. And I mentioned how back when I was getting conscious and more conscious about the food I put in my body, it was getting so much feeling in my body instead of my mind that I could go to a grocery store, look at a food, pick it up, read its label, and my stomach would tell me if I needed it or not. If I got a stomach ache, I would put it back on the shelf. My body was telling me what I needed to eat, not my mind. That resonated with her also, and I'm thinking it might resonate with some of you out there. So try it next time. Again, what we're practicing here is not using the repetitive tapes in our head, the ones that keep repeating over and over. No, you should do this. No, you shouldn't do that. Remember that sucked last time you did it. Why don't you just eat that? It doesn't matter anyway. Those are old thoughts, but they can be reframed. Reframe them. They're your thoughts. They were a part of you. I'm not asking you to bury them, deny them even more. I'm asking you to bring them up, to view them either as a piece of clothing that you want to now take off, or as your body telling you what it needs now and not your mind. Thank you guys all for joining. I'm interested to hear in the comments, either on Instagram or YouTube, after I post, or if anybody has a comment now. So let me just read something that came through on YouTube. Angie came in. She said, I found you earlier today when I was seeking truth about one soul being in two bodies. Well, I guess you found the answer because I have a video about that, don't I? And yes, that's possible. I like to always have proof before I share it. And I got proof that day. That was nice. That was nice. That was a good, I'm assuming you found that video about a soul being in two bodies. So that sounds good to me. All right. So Angie is also saying now about the clothing. Shane, it makes me think about how good it feels to take off a bra when I get home. Exactly. That's exactly right. When you hold all these layers and layers of clothing, what's happening as you take them off is you are creating space so that new things might enter. New things. And for this client that I just read, for her, it was about the new job. And her layers of clothing were things like, oh, I'd really like to leave this job, but I like the people I work with so much. And that was one layer of her clothing. So we took that off. And then she said, oh, all of these people, they're so kind. I feel bad if I leave. That was another layer. So you see, it doesn't have to be one word emotions. It could be feelings that you're feeling about your job. Maybe you're looking for a new home. Maybe you're looking for a new car. Maybe you're looking for anything new. However, new can't come in unless we create space for it. And we create space for it by processing the old stuff, by reframing the old stuff to create more space. Someone on Instagram just said, it feels the same as in love with the same person, meaning that's an emotion to be in love with the same person. It feels same as in love with the same person, meaning over and over, you keep falling in love with the same person. So a layer of your clothing would feel like that weight hasn't lifted, hasn't taken off and been recycled or processed yet. So you keep falling in love with the same sort of person. I'm getting that's what you're saying. Correct me if I'm wrong or elaborate a little bit more. Angie back on YouTube, back to the soul being, is saying, I believe my grandmother is in both me and my daughter. That makes sense. That makes sense. And how does that work for you? What does that mean for you? So it's not just creating the thoughts in your head. How does it work with you? What is my message? Is there a lesson? Or is your grandmother just showing you how much love is in that family? And that's what it all boils down to, is the love that I have for me and for all the layers that are on me. Even though some may still be on, some might take off and put back on, it's okay. Notice every layer that comes off. Notice it. Talk to it. Same with the same person back on Instagram. Is it like accepting their bad habits? Let them be what they are. And change yourself because you didn't have courage to unlove them. It's okay to love someone. It doesn't mean that you agree with what they're doing or agree with how they're treating you. But love is love is love is love. It doesn't mean I want that person around me. So yes, my question on Instagram, you change yourself first. And when you change yourself, that helps your vibe as well as others' vibration. In fact, go back to the reading I just did. My client, all of this work that we were talking about, the clothing, the reframing, was changing her so that she could change her interactions with her family, mom, dad, and brother, who at this point she wasn't speaking to, but they all came through during the reading, showing how much they loved her, even though they don't speak, and how they have their own thoughts, but yet she was working on her own projections and her own thoughts based on everything that they talked about. Spirit talked about. Back on Instagram, what if they say I don't want to change? And if you're going to change me, it's toxic love. And what if they hurt you with a habit? That's exactly, you don't want to change them. You can't change them. You can only change yourself. Heal yourself by healing the world. Heal yourself first before trying to heal the world. Change your vibe and then see the change in someone else. And yes, if that habit that they have is toxic for you or hurting you, find the help that you need. Spirit was also saying to this client, it doesn't help if those thoughts ruminate over and over in your head. It does help if you write them down. It does help if you journal, get the words out like you're getting the words out on these comments to me on Instagram. Thank you for asking. So Spirit has suggested to my client that you just continue journaling about the emotions that you feel. Talk to them. Hey, shame. Hey, guilt. Hey, denial. I see you. How can we chat about this? Can we look at this? So you're bringing all pieces of you together in your writing, getting it out. Instagram saying, I appreciate you for answering my questions, making me feel I can do better. You're not doing worse. You're doing what you can do. You're practicing what you can do. There is no good or bad, but it doesn't mean things don't hurt and that you are feeling things. Know that you changing is for you first and foremost. So get the help that you're looking for. Reach out. Thanks everybody for joining. Appreciate it. Be sure to share, comment, like, subscribe, listen to the podcast, linking to the afterlife, getting some fabulous reviews. We actually hit #1 on the indie spirituality chart for the last 2 weeks. That means people are listening. And I thank you so much for downloading, listening, and following. And if it works and you're on that sort of site that accepts ratings and reviews, please do that. Thank you so much. Okay, let me just go back quick to Instagram. You didn't screw it all up. I've had many moments where I felt that way also. You didn't screw it up. It's all a practice, and now we're moving forward. Get the lessons that you've learned, work with them, get some help, and move forward. That's okay. I hear you, I see you, I sense you. Spirit has your back. Leave no room for doubt. Leave no room for doubt. Thanks, everybody. Heading off now. See ya. Bye, everybody on Instagram. Thanks so much.